This is a stencil card. Let's make this one together. You can start by picking a good photo and uploading it to Bay Stencil. When you do that, you can pick the photo and then crop it, maybe remove the background if you haven't already, and then make sure your email address is in there. And when your email address is good, you click submit. And a couple of minutes later, you're going to get back 9 options. We want to pick a 3-color option, although with the 2-color option, you also get a card, but it's not usually as nice. So this one on the top looks good. We're going to pick it. And when we do that, we're going to get back a 3-layer stencil of that image. And if we buy it and pay for the SVGs, we're going to get a zip file that has the SVGs in it. We're just going to look for the file that's called card.svg. We'll rename it so it's easy to find. And then we're going to go into Cricut Design Space and upload the SVG to the uploads and add that to our project. Now, you're going to want to resize this so that it fits on your long mat, and make sure that your cardstock is also long enough to print the whole card. The stencil should be cut out, which is the default, but those vertical lines are the fold lines, and we just want those to be creased, so we're going to change those from cut to score. Let's select everything and then click attach. This tells Design Space that we don't want to rearrange the cut elements, we just want it to cut it as shown. When that's done, Design Space is going to turn it sideways, and then we position it relative to the cardstock on the mat, and that should be good to go. We still need to choose our settings, and I choose a setting that uses maximum pressure with 2 times tracing each shape, and then I always use the more pressure because I have better luck with that. I'm going to make sure that I have my scoring stylus loaded in clamp A and put my paper down, and I'm going to get started cutting. You know, it's going to score first, then it's going to cut. And it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to cut the card. As you take the card off the mat, be careful not to tear the bridges. Those score lines are calibrated to the cardstock so that the card will fold flat with room for both flaps inside. More importantly, the 2 stencils are going to line up with each other, and that can be tough to do by hand, so trust me and fold it on the score lines. It's important to make sure that the flaps don't skew up or down when you're folding, or else your stencils won't line up. There you go. Now I'm going to use acrylic paint in 2 colors to paint this, but before I do that, I'm going to cut out a few of the bridges that are a little bit distracting to me, like these ones around the hairline, because I don't want to have a bunch of white gaps where the bridges are around the hairline. Now obviously you can't remove all the bridges because then stuff is just going to start falling out, but I also noticed that if I remove too many bridges, the card gets a little bit wobbly, and I don't like that. So I am a little bit conservative, and I make sure that I always leave a few at the top and the bottom of each shape so that the card stays stable. So let's use pink, some kind of antique pink for the first layer. That'll be our mid-tone over white. And so some of the white will obviously stay showing through, and that's what we want. And with the dabbing of the stencil here, I want to make sure to go straight up and down, and I want to make sure that the paint goes all the way to the edges of the stencil without going under the stencil. So if you use ink or watercolor or something like that, you want to be careful that it's not so fluid that it flows underneath, or use paper that's absorbent enough so that it doesn't travel far when it goes underneath. I waited obviously to do the second layer, and that's going to be in a darker color, a navy blue. And that's going to give me some of the relief and highlights around the nose, mouth, and eyes that I want. Make sure again to go up right up to the edges, and that looks pretty good right out of the gate, I think. Now let's take this stencil outside and see what we can do with it. Okay, so we've got the one for the refrigerator. Let's tear these edges off and use it as a regular stencil. Wow. I chose to try some different colors here and found that I needed a little bit darker color to accent the eyes, nose, and mouth, but I'm pretty happy with how it came out. That's it. That's the stencil card from Bay Stencil.